Hey folks, James Hilliard here. I am a voiceover artist, a webcast and podcast guy. And before March 2020, I was a live event host. We travel around the country helping companies pull off corporate events. And so what we wanted to do is share with you a conversation today, not only a conversation, but also a demo of some of the possibilities of virtual production and really kind of where the state of the art is. Joining me is Tim Messina. He is the owner of Events United and Studio Lab here in Derry, New Hampshire. And also on board is Rob Livie with us. He comes from Connection, where he is the manager for video production. Some other folks on board you're going to be seeing. We've got John and Ian on set as well. And they'll be demonstrating some of the opportunities that teams can take advantage of in terms of video production. And Rob, I want to start with you with this idea. You, for years, have been putting on a live kickoff event for your company. Usually it's in front of 600 plus folks. You're on site at an arena or a major hotel ballroom, something like that. And then all of a sudden, you're charged with, hey, Rob, let's do everything that you do so well, and let's do it virtually. And you heard that, and the first idea that came to mind was what?
Oh no, everyone's gonna be sitting behind their desks on their webcams.
Yeah.
And that was not a good thought. So the first thing I was really concerned about was the fact that by the time we actually had this event, so many people for so long were gonna be using their typical webcams, and they were going to be used to, what a regular webinar might look like. And we were really concerned about the fatigue. And honestly, that was back in the summer. And here we are in February of the next year. And you can imagine how much even worse that is.
Right.
So that was the biggest concern, I think, going in. So we started to think about this in a much different way. We thought, well, most of our team is local. So is there a way to get them in the same place, in a safe way, where we could make this event look like something different, maybe more like a TV show, an awards show, or something like that.
Right.
And so that was sort of our first step into this. And then, of course, Tim came along.
Well, and so all right, I have this idea, says Rob, and hey, let's do a TV type show. And you've got some background in television, so you brought a lot of that there. Tim, you've worked with Rob on these live events, on site. And so you bring all your gear, you bring the trucks out, you set everything up great. And then he says, hey, Tim, we want to do the exact same thing, but we want to do it in that little 14-inch box for the viewers. And you said, what?
Okay. I don't know. We had to rethink everything that we knew. Yeah, this is me thinking, I don't know what we're going to do.
I've said yes, and now let's figure it out, right?
Yeah, we literally had no idea. We didn't know. We were putting a bet on something that we didn't have any context to. There was no market for virtual production yet. The term didn't really even exist yet.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you push things forward? And the next thing you know, Mandalorian is giving information about how they shot their set. Well, maybe we can take some of that and do it in a live event setting, which has turned out to be incredibly difficult. But it has paid off because it has given us the ability to make a viewer at home be interacting with the event that's actually happening.
Let's go back even further. Back in the day, and for anyone that watched the old, and I'm going to bring up the old Superman movies, a stage, a big screen with something being projected back there, and then holding up Christopher Reeve and making him fly, right? That was state of the art. And a lot of us that watched those movies were like, yeah, I kind of believe that he's flying there. Now we watch it and we're like, oh, how hokey. But back then on first viewing, we're like, oh, we could do that. Then we evolved to green screen. That turned out to be what everyone thought it could be. Did you ever think that green screen might be the answer to virtual production in 2020 and beyond?
Well, green screen is still a very good, you can still use it for this. The difference is that this is all happening right in front of us. For instance, I could bring up a Zoom caller and we can talk to them in real time. And I'm not looking at a green screen, I'm actually looking at them to talk with them. Just a few minutes ago, Dachi was performing here and we were able to interact with them. You were able to interact with them and just look right at them.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a big difference there.
Another thing that's interesting about this versus green screen is in combination with practical lighting, we actually are getting the bounce from this wall on us. So that's why it works so well in The Mandalorian, is that you have reflections on chrome that look very realistic. And so there's an element that actually makes this look more realistic because of this backdrop, which has been really impressive.
We can show you some other things too. You mentioned we can shift things in real time. So Ryan, can you move the sun to a different part in the sky? So we can decide right off the bat, where do we want to be? Where do you want the sun to be? Where is the moon going to be? Do we want to have Do we want a starry night, a cloudy night? What do we want to happen at
Snow
what
in New
time?
Hampshire.
I have to say, as a director, it was so much fun to say, can we move the sun over there?
Yeah, that's right. So these are some of the things that you can do with this technology, and we're seeing this obviously in real time. And some of the things that we talk about when we're looking at virtual production is we really have to consider the fact that everything is from a perspective. It's from a camera's perspective. What the cameras are seeing is called the camera frustum. It's essentially rendering a box in the video wall that camera's position is telling the video wall what to render. And to make all of these perspective changes correct, there are trackers inside the room that are tracking the camera in space. And by knowing where everything is in the real world, we can then create the virtual world to line up with the real world. Another thing that we can do that makes this really usable is think about the limitation of our studio. If our camera shoots up, it's going to see our ceiling in our studio lights. And in some instances, that's fine. It has its own look and feel, and that's kind of cool. But other times, especially when we're shooting film, we want the scene to go on beyond our studio. And for that, we can do set extensions. That will allow us, the camera, to see that the world goes on beyond our studio and becomes very convincing that we are in a much bigger space than we really are. And one question that we get asked a lot is, how real can we make this look? It really comes down to the amount of texture that's in a scene, how it's lit, how the studio is lit in the real world, and do they match? Are your perspectives correct? Are your depth of field from the camera correct? There's a lot of different parameters that we have to consider to make sure that the scenes look real. And to talk more about how all of this really works, I'm going to throw this over to Ian, who's our director of virtual production. So Ian's going to walk you through a little bit about Unreal Engine that we're using and some of these ideas, how it all works.
So just dropped right in here. So a lot of this obviously is being run right now off of the Unreal Engine. Now, this is the actual computer that is running the visuals on screen. So right now what I'm going to do is stop that, and I'm going to show you a little bit more behind the scenes of why this, or how this file was built, as well as like how it was built along the period of those 6 months when, you know, Rob first came in with his design team, and we ran through a couple of ideas and then went from there. So I'm going to just back out of this and show you a bit. Right off the bat, when we first started this, you'll see our interesting looking building here. With a lot of different parts to it. So we had around 6 or 7 different levels that were all built inside of this. And on top of that, you also have to realize the landscape is all of these buildings out here. Now, when they first came to us those first couple of months, the reason why, using Unreal and the capabilities it had here, going from usually running in Cinema 4D, right, Rob? Is that where the background came from? So they were in other 3D programs, but they were able to take their knowledge and their development of different worlds, bring them into Unreal, and then use the real-time capabilities of the lighting and everything like that. So when you set up a world like this, it's extremely important to think about, the final use case. And, having Rob go, I want to be able to change the sun dynamically. I also want it to go from day to night, possibly, making sure that this file was built out specifically for that so he can have that control instantly. Was a really interesting task, but ultimately helped us dial in what we wanted to see. And then after they had gone through the first month, let's just go inside to one of these looks here. If you look, so the room they're currently on is this Reimagine room right here. And one by one, these stacked up on top of each other. They added more rooms, they added different rooms. But ultimately, we needed a way to control the floor levels because we were going up and down, and different people would come up and talk, and everybody had different levels. And we needed to make sure that on the day of the shoot, when it went live, that we were hitting these cues perfectly, as well as controlling sun and the position. We were giving that to Ryan so he could make his lighting changes dynamically within the Unreal Engine world, the virtual world, and our real world. They need to be dynamically moving at the same time. And that's where I'll take it over to John, and John will explain more about how you get that control with Disguise.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. So if we stop right here real quick, this is actually really cool too. This is our tracking system. So as you can see, all the cameras are tracking in this room right here. Right now we're looking at this camera right here, and you can see all the cameras we have that are following that camera. So Ian's sending over his Unreal file, and that's coming over into this program here called Disguise. Disguise has their background in huge arena shows. They've been on pretty much most of the major arena shows that have huge video walls. And after COVID hit, they really pivoted hard to the virtual event world. It allows us to switch cameras in real time. Now, if you think about this, this is a ridiculously crazy feat. There's a lot of intricate timing that needs to be perfect for this to work, and yet it does work.
And Tim, are more people starting to say, what is virtual production? Do they understand that's language now?
Yeah, it's crazy. The amount of people calling and just curious about it and want to see more. And we've given many demos of this year. And what's interesting is that everyone that comes in, we're in another stage of the process. We're still developing the technology to do all this. But it's incredibly exciting to me where this is going to go in a live environment and what we can do with augmented reality now, including this technology live.
Folks, I hope you appreciate that kind of behind-the-scenes look at what Events United and the Studio Lab can do potentially for your teams. If you do want more information, obviously, Tim and crew happy to get online with you and share more information. If you got hardcore techies that need to be talking to folks like Ian and others, we can make that happen. But I hope you appreciate some of the possibilities that could be available to all of you in your virtual productions. With that, we'll wrap things up, and we do hope to talk to y'all down the road.